There are nights when nothing is wrong, yet everything feels heavy. When the day has ended, but the weight has not, and the sky seems to rest lower than usual. Not to crush you, but to remind you how much you have been carrying quietly. This is a story for those moments, for the strength that does not announce itself, for the patience that holds without asking why. Like a mountain standing beneath unmoving clouds, this story does not promise clarity or change. It offers something more honest, the permission to rest without fixing, to breathe without explanation, and to feel steady even when the sky does not clear. If you have been strong for too long, if your silence has carried more than your words ever could, this night is not asking you to move forward. It is asking you to stay. And welcome to the Silent Sky channel. Like and subscribe. The mountain had always been quiet, but tonight its quiet felt heavier. Not loud, not threatening, just heavy in the way the air feels before rain that never comes. Dark clouds rested above it, low and unmoving, layered like thoughts that had been sitting too long without being spoken. They did not gather quickly. They did not break apart. They simply stayed, as if they had chosen this place to pause. The mountain did not react. It had learned long ago that some things arrive without asking and remain without explanation. Beneath those clouds, the land felt muted. Colors softened, edges blurred slightly. Even the night seemed less sharp, as if it understood that this was not a moment for contrast. Everything slowed to match the weight above. The mountain stood steady. It did not try to push the clouds away. It did not ask how long they would stay. It carried them. Somewhere far below, a person lay awake, eyes closed, body still. The day had ended, but it had not fully let go. Thoughts lingered without shape, like the clouds above the mountain, present, quiet, unmoving. Nothing was particularly wrong, and yet something felt heavy. Breathing moved in and out, steady but shallow. The body rested, but not deeply. The mind was tired, but not quiet. It held on to the day the way the clouds held the sky, without intention, without urgency. The mountain understood this kind of weight. The clouds were not storms. They did not threaten lightning or rain. They were simply pressure, layers of expectation, memory, and unspoken effort resting where they had gathered. The mountain did not resist. It had learned that resistance only sharpens weight. Instead, it stayed exactly where it was, allowing the clouds to be what they were without reacting to them. Stone does not tense. Earth does not brace itself. It holds. The night deepened slowly, but the clouds did not change. They did not darken further. They did not lighten. They stayed suspended, as if time had slowed just for them. Below, the person shifted slightly, then stilled again. The movement did not lead to comfort or discomfort. It was simply a reminder that rest had not fully arrived yet. That was okay. The mountain did not hurry rest. It had seen many nights like this, nights where nothing dramatic happened, where there was no release or resolution, nights where the quiet itself felt full. These were the nights that required patience. The clouds pressed gently, not enough to harm, but enough to be felt. The mountain sensed their weight across its slopes, across the stillness of the land. It did not name the pressure. Naming was unnecessary. Some things do not need to be understood to be carried. The air beneath the clouds felt thick but safe. Sound did not travel far. Movement felt optional. Everything invited stillness without demanding it. The mountain remained present, not strong in the way of effort, strong in the way of endurance. Below, the person's breathing began to slow, not because sleep had arrived, but because the body had decided to stop trying. There was nothing left to solve tonight, no answer waiting in wakefulness. The clouds above the mountain mirrored this decision. They did not shift or scatter. They settled. The night wrapped itself around both mountain and sleeper without urgency. Darkness was not deep enough to hide, but deep enough to soften. It did not ask for surrender. It offered permission. The mountain had always been good at offering permission. Permission to stay still. Permission to feel heavy without explaining why. Permission to exist without improvement. The clouds did not need to leave for calm to exist. This was something the mountain knew well. Weight does not always mean danger. Sometimes it means you have been carrying things quietly for too long. The mountain did not judge the clouds for resting here. It did not wonder if they belonged. It did not count how many layers pressed against the sky. It simply stayed. Below, thoughts thinned slightly, not gone, just quieter. The body relaxed into the surface beneath it, allowing gravity to do more of the work. Muscles released small efforts they did not know they were holding. The night accepted this without comment. The clouds remained, and somehow their stillness made everything else feel less demanding. The mountain held the weight without complaint. It did not promise that the clouds would lift. It did not promise that tomorrow would be clearer. Promises were unnecessary. This was not a story about clearing the sky. It was a story about learning how to rest beneath it. As the night continued, nothing changed quickly. Nothing needed to. The clouds stayed, the mountain stayed, and the quiet deepened, not into silence, but into tolerance. Tolerance for heaviness, tolerance for pause, tolerance for nights that do not resolve. Below, sleep began its slow approach, not sudden, not complete, just closer than before. The mountain felt this shift and remained steady. This was how the night began, not with movement, not with release, but with a shared understanding that sometimes calm does not come from lifting the weight. It comes from realizing that you are allowed to rest even while carrying it. The clouds did not arrive loudly. They had been there long enough that no one remembered when they first appeared. They did not announce themselves with wind or rain. They did not darken the sky suddenly. They simply existed, settled, patient, unmoving. The mountain felt their presence without surprise. Some weights do not ask permission. They arrive quietly and stay quietly. The clouds pressed down, not with force, but with consistency. Layer after layer rested above the mountain, creating a pressure that was easy to ignore at first and difficult to name later. Nothing about them demanded attention, yet everything beneath them felt slightly altered. The mountain did not adjust its posture. Stone does not shift to accommodate heaviness. It allows heaviness to be. Below, the night continued its slow unfolding. Darkness spread evenly, without sharp edges. The air felt dense but calm, as if holding its breath for no particular reason. Nothing urged the clouds to move. They had nowhere else to be. Far below the mountain, the sleeper lay still. The body was resting, but rest felt incomplete. Muscles had loosened, yet something deeper remained tense, an invisible tightness that did not belong to any single thought. The mind drifted, not actively thinking, not fully quiet. It hovered in a space where worries were no longer loud, but not yet gone. Each thought passed slowly, like clouds of its own, unhurried and unresolved. The mountain recognized this rhythm. The clouds above did not rush either. They did not gather momentum or threaten change. They remained suspended, as if time itself had slowed around them. This kind of weight did not come from fear. It came from accumulation. Small expectations left unspoken, responsibilities accepted without pause, moments of rest postponed again and again. The clouds carried all of this without shape or sound. The mountain carried the clouds. It did not ask why the sky had chosen this weight. It did not wonder if the clouds would ever leave. Wondering creates tension, and tension was unnecessary here. The night did not resist the pressure. It adapted. Sound softened beneath the clouds. Even the quiet felt different, less empty, more padded. The land seemed to settle into itself, as if understanding that movement would require effort it did not need to spend. The mountain remained steady, unmoved by the long stillness. Below, the sleeper shifted slightly, then stopped. The movement did not improve comfort or worsen it. It was simply a response, automatic, unplanned. Breathing slowed, not because calm had fully arrived, but because the body had decided to stop correcting itself. There was nothing to fix tonight. The clouds above mirrored this decision. They stopped drifting, stopped reshaping. They rested exactly where they were. The mountain felt the full weight now, not as burden, but as presence. Pressure can feel threatening when resisted. When allowed, it becomes something else entirely. It becomes background. The clouds did not push the mountain downward. They pressed evenly, spreading their weight so gently that nothing cracked or shifted. This was not collapse. This was endurance. The night accepted this balance. Darkness deepened slightly, though the clouds remained the same shade, dense, unmoving, familiar. The sky did not demand clarity. It did not insist on openness. It allowed heaviness to exist without apology. Below, the sleeper's thoughts thinned further. They no longer formed clear sentences. They appeared as fragments, half-feelings, unfinished memories, sensations without labels. This was not discomfort. This was transition. The mountain did not notice this change as progress. It noticed it as settling. Some nights do not move forward. They move inward. The clouds above remained low and close, creating a sense of enclosure that was neither comforting nor oppressive. It was simply there, unchanging, reliable. The mountain had stood beneath many skies, clear ones that demanded attention, stormy ones that demanded endurance. This sky demanded nothing. That was its weight. The clouds asked nothing of the mountain, and the mountain asked nothing of them. They existed together in a quiet agreement. Below, the body relaxed a little more. Shoulders dropped by a fraction, jaw softened without instruction. The mind did not notice these changes. That was the point. The night does its work best when unnoticed. The clouds did not lighten, they did not break, they did not promise relief, and yet something beneath them felt less strained than before. The mountain understood this well. Relief does not always come from release. Sometimes it comes from acceptance. The clouds had not been invited, but they were not unwelcome. They rested because they could. The mountain held them because it always had the strength to hold what arrived. This strength was not dramatic. It was quiet and continuous. The night wrapped itself gently around this arrangement. Darkness did not hide the clouds. It softened their edges, allowing them to blend into the sky without becoming overwhelming. Below, sleep drew closer, not quickly, not fully, just close enough to be felt as possibility. The mountain felt this and remained unchanged. Nothing needed to happen next. The clouds stayed, the mountain stayed, the night deepened without urgency. And in that steady, unremarkable stillness, something subtle shifted, not in the sky, not in the land, but within the quiet itself. The weight that did not ask permission began to feel less like something to carry alone, and more like something that could simply be held.
The clouds did not move when the night grew deeper. They stayed where they were, low and settled, as if the sky had chosen this exact position and decided not to reconsider. Nothing pushed them forward. Nothing pulled them apart. They rested in a way that felt intentional, even though no intention guided them. The mountain noticed the stillness. Stillness was not unfamiliar, but this kind of stillness carried weight. Not pressure that demanded strength, but presence that required space. The mountain did not brace itself. It did not widen its stance or harden its surface. It remained as it always had, allowing the weight above to rest without resistance. Stone understands patience. The night beneath the clouds felt slower now. Time did not stop, but it stretched, like something being held gently instead of allowed to fall. Sounds softened further. Even silence felt padded, as though wrapped in layers. The mountain stood inside this softness. Below, the sleeper lay quiet, body heavy against the surface beneath it. The world outside the body had slowed enough that the body felt no need to react. Breathing became less deliberate, no longer guided by thought or effort. In the mind, images appeared and faded without meaning. Not memories exactly, more like impressions, shapes without edges, feelings without names. They did not ask to be followed. They passed on their own. The clouds above mirrored this behavior.
They did not shift shape. They did not rearrange themselves. They remained broad and even, like a thought that has decided not to complete itself. The mountain felt the weight fully now, not as something new, but as something steady. There was no moment when the clouds became heavier. They simply continued being what they were. This kind of weight does not build suddenly. It accumulates quietly. Days that ended without rest, conversations left unfinished, moments of calm postponed until later. The clouds carried all of it without distinguishing one layer from another. The mountain carried the clouds without separating them into meaning. Meaning was unnecessary. The night did not try to lift the clouds. It did not thin them or challenge their presence. Darkness adapted around them, settling gently into the spaces they created. Stillness learned how to hold back, not retreating, not advancing, just staying. Below, the sleeper's body released another small effort. A breath deepened, then returned to its slow rhythm. Muscles softened in places that had been tense for reasons long forgotten. This was not relief. It was permission. Permission to remain as you are, even when the weight has not changed. The mountain understood this kind of permission well. It had stood beneath clear skies that demanded openness. It had endured storms that demanded resilience. This sky demanded neither. It demanded tolerance. The clouds were not asking the mountain to carry them better. They were simply resting where they had landed. The mountain did not take this personally. Stone does not personalize weight. The air beneath the clouds felt enclosed, but not trapped. It was like being inside a pause that did not need to end. Nothing reached outward, nothing pushed inward. Everything stayed close to itself. The night accepted this closeness. Below, the sleeper's awareness drifted further back. The boundary between waking and sleeping softened. Thoughts no longer formed lines or patterns. They appeared briefly, then dissolved, like mist that does not gather. The body did not follow them. It stayed. The clouds above did not notice this shift. They were not watching. They were not waiting for a reaction. They existed independent of what happened below. This was important. Weight that demands attention becomes heavy in the wrong way. Weight that rests without asking allows space beneath it. The mountain felt this distinction clearly. The clouds did not lean harder as the night went on. They did not sink lower. They remained exactly where they were, letting the night do its work around them. Stillness learned how to hold back, how to remain without pressing, how to exist without expanding. The mountain remained unchanged. It did not absorb the clouds. It did not push against them. It allowed them to rest without response. Below, the sleeper's breathing found a deeper rhythm, not forced, not controlled. It simply happened, slow and even. The body no longer questioned whether rest was coming. It allowed rest to approach on its own terms.
The night deepened slightly, but without drama. Darkness did not thicken sharply. It softened further, creating a sense of enclosure that felt safe rather than confining. The clouds blended into this darkness without losing their shape. They were still there, and that was okay. The mountain knew this lesson well, that some nights are not meant to resolve. Some nights exist to teach you how to remain steady beneath things that do not move. The clouds did not promise to lift by morning. The mountain did not require that promise. Below, sleep edged closer, not arriving, not retreating. It hovered nearby, patient, waiting for the body to stop monitoring itself. The body obliged. Stillness did not demand sleep. It made space for it. The mountain stood quietly beneath the unmoving sky, holding nothing more than what had arrived. It did not count time. It did not measure progress. It stayed. And in that staying, the weight above felt less like something pressing down and more like something that had finally stopped asking for explanation. The clouds remained. The night continued. And somewhere beneath it all, rest learned that it did not need to wait for the sky to clear in order to begin. Thoughts did not form clearly anymore. They arrived as vague impressions, feelings without stories, memories without details. None of them asked to be completed. They waited, too. The clouds above mirrored this inner state. They did not gather momentum. They did not break into pieces. They existed as a steady layer of presence, reminding everything beneath them that nothing had to happen next. The mountain felt the pressure evenly across its slopes, not sharp, not threatening, just present. This kind of pressure does not demand strength. It demands patience. The mountain had learned patience through years of stillness. It had watched seasons change without complaint and sunlight without celebration. The clouds were simply another thing to hold. The night deepened slowly, but the clouds did not respond. Darkness wrapped around them gently, softening their edges without removing them. The sky did not feel crowded. It felt held. Below, the sleeper's breathing slowed further. The inhale stretched slightly longer. The exhale released gently without effort. The body did not instruct this change. It allowed it. Waiting has a way of loosening control when it lasts long enough. The mountain felt this loosening in the air itself. The pressure did not increase or decrease. It settled into a steady balance, like a weight that has been set down carefully and no longer shifts. The clouds were no longer newcomers. They belonged here now.
The clouds remained exactly where they were, not shifting, not thickening, not giving any signal of change. They rested above the mountain with a quiet certainty, as if waiting had become their natural state. The sky did not resist them. It did not try to stretch or open. It accepted their presence without reaction. The mountain felt this waiting deeply. Waiting does not always feel like pause. Sometimes it feels like pressure without direction. The mountain did not interpret the clouds as delay or obstacle. It understood that waiting can exist without expectation. The clouds were not waiting for rain. They were not waiting to move. They were simply waiting because nothing required movement yet. Stone understands this kind of time. Below the clouds, the land felt suspended, not frozen, just unhurried. Paths did not invite travel. Valleys did not call for echo. Everything felt content to remain exactly where it was. The mountain stood within this suspension. Below, the sleeper remained still. The body had settled into the surface beneath it, finding a position that no longer required correction. Muscles stayed relaxed, not because comfort was perfect, but because effort had been abandoned. The mind hovered in a space between thought and absence.
The mountain had learned that resolution is not always required for rest. Sometimes rest arrives simply because nothing is being forced. The pressure above remained quiet. The night continued. Below, sleep edged closer, not rushing, not arriving fully. It hovered near the body, patient, waiting for the final layers of effort to release themselves. The body did not resist. The mind did not intervene. The mountain stayed steady beneath the clouds, holding the quiet pressure of waiting without interpreting it as delay or failure. Waiting in this place was not something to endure. It was something to inhabit. The clouds remained where they were, teaching the night a subtle lesson that stillness does not mean stagnation, and pressure does not always mean harm. Sometimes waiting is simply the space where rest learns how to arrive without being summoned. The mountain remained. The clouds stayed. And the night, calm and unhurried, allowed everything beneath the quiet sky to settle a little deeper into itself, without promise, without release, without needing the sky to clear before peace could exist.
The clouds did not change their form. They did not gather into something dramatic, nor did they dissolve into mist. They stayed broad and undefined, stretched across the sky like something that had never learned how to become a single shape. The mountain felt this shapelessness clearly. Weight without shape is the hardest to name. The mountain stood beneath it anyway. There was no clear edge where the clouds began or ended. They blended into the night, into the air, into the quiet itself. Looking upward would not have revealed answers, only layers upon layers of the same muted presence. The mountain did not look upward. It listened to what it could feel. The air beneath the clouds felt dense but calm, not heavy enough to press breath away, not light enough to feel open. It existed in between, where things are carried rather than resolved. Below, the sleeper rested in that same in-between state. The body lay still, supported, yet not completely surrendered to sleep. Muscles had softened, but something deeper remained alert. Not worried, not afraid, just present, holding on out of habit rather than necessity. The mind drifted slowly. Thoughts no longer formed stories. They appeared as sensations instead. A tightness in the chest without explanation, a heaviness behind the eyes, a sense of having done enough for one day, but still feeling unfinished. These feelings had no names. The clouds understood this kind of existence. They carried no single message, no clear emotion. They were not sadness, not fear, not anticipation. They were accumulation, everything that had not found a place to rest yet. The mountain carried them without asking for clarity. Stone does not require understanding to support weight. The night moved gently around this arrangement. Darkness did not deepen suddenly. It settled gradually, softening edgings without erasing them. The clouds became part of the night rather than something distinct from it. This blending mattered. When weight blends into the background, it becomes easier to live beneath it.
The mountain did not ask how long waiting would last. It did not imagine the moment when the sky might clear. Imagining creates tension, and tension had no place in this night. Instead, the mountain stayed focused on holding what was present. The night respected this focus. Silence grew deeper, but not emptier. It felt layered, textured by the weight above and the calm below. Even the quiet carried a density that made it feel substantial. This was not emptiness. This was containment. Below, the body's awareness drifted further inward. The boundary between body and thought softened. There was no urgency to cross it. There was no need to remain alert. The clouds above did not react to this inner change. They remained patient. Waiting does not rush progress. The mountain understood that waiting is not inactivity. It is a form of holding that does not interfere. It allows whatever is beneath it to settle in its own time. The clouds practiced this perfectly. They did not push down harder as the night grew longer. They did not loosen their grip either. They remained steady, offering the same quiet pressure from moment to moment. The mountain accepted this consistency. Consistency can be comforting when it does not demand response. Below, the body released another small effort. The neck relaxed. The hands loosened slightly. These changes happened without thought, without intention. The night allowed them. The mountain felt the rhythm of waiting extend through the land. Nothing pulled forward, nothing fell behind. Time felt less like movement and more like space. Space to remain unfinished. Space to remain unresolved. The clouds did not promise resolution. They did not need to.
The mountain felt this shift as a subtle easing, not because the clouds were lighter, but because they were no longer separate. They belonged to the sky now, not something hovering unnaturally above it. Below, the sleeper's breathing deepened slightly, not intentionally, just enough to feel a little more space in the chest. The body adjusted on its own, finding a position that required less effort to maintain. The mind did not notice. That was important. Rest does not arrive through attention. It arrives when attention steps aside. The clouds continued to rest without shape. They did not move to become something definable. They did not sharpen into threat or soften into promise. They simply stayed. The mountain had held many things like this before. Snow before it fell, fog before it lifted, silence before it broke. It knew that not everything arrives with a clear purpose. Some things arrive to be carried until they no longer need carrying. The air remained still, not perfectly still, but steady enough that movement felt unnecessary. The land beneath the mountain seemed to settle further into itself, as if acknowledging that nothing demanded action tonight. Below, the sleeper's awareness drifted backward, loosening its grip on the edges of wakefulness. Thoughts no longer checked the time. The body no longer waited for sleep to arrive. It allowed sleep to approach in its own way. The clouds did not interfere.
They did not lean heavier as the night grew longer. They did not lighten to signal change. They remained consistent, offering the same quiet presence from moment to moment. Consistency can feel comforting when it asks nothing of you. The mountain felt the full breadth of the clouds now, not as pressure, but as coverage. The sky felt complete rather than crowded. There were no gaps that needed filling, no spaces that demanded clarity. Everything was already occupied by stillness. Below, the sleeper's breathing settled into a slow, even rhythm. The body no longer made small corrections. It rested into gravity, trusting it to do the work of holding. The mind faded further into the background. This was not unconsciousness. It was release. The clouds remained shapeless, but their presence felt less intrusive now. They were no longer something to be endured. They were simply part of the night's landscape. The mountain did not mind this. It had never required the sky to be clear in order to stand. The night continued without urgency. Time did not feel like something passing. It felt like something holding everything in place long enough for tension to dissolve naturally. Below, sleep edged closer, not suddenly, not completely. It approached quietly, like something familiar returning without needing an invitation. The clouds did not resist this. They did not block rest. They did not delay it. They coexisted with it.
This was the quiet truth the mountain understood, that heaviness without shape does not prevent rest. It only asks for patience. The mountain remained steady, holding what had arrived without demanding explanation. The clouds stayed broad and undefined, resting in the sky without apology. Below, the sleeper drifted closer to sleep, carried not by clarity or resolution, but by the simple permission to stop making sense of everything. The night allowed this permission to settle deeply. Nothing needed to change for rest to arrive. Nothing needed to clear. Sometimes calm does not come from understanding what you are carrying. It comes from realizing that you are strong enough to carry it quietly, without naming it, without fixing it, and without asking it to leave before you allow yourself to rest. The mountain stayed. The clouds remained, and beneath them the night held everything gently. Wait and rest together, until the body no longer felt the need to stay awake beneath a sky that did not ask to be explained. The clouds had been there long enough to feel familiar. Not comforting, not troubling. Familiar in the way certain evenings feel, when the day has ended, but its presence has not fully released you yet. The mountain recognized this familiarity immediately. It did not feel new pressure. It felt like continuation. The mountain stood beneath the clouds without adjustment. Familiar weight does not require reaction. It only asks to be acknowledged. The clouds did not change shape or density. They did not signal threat or promise. They remained broad and still, spread across the sky like a thought that returns night after night, unchanged but persistent. The night settled deeper around them. Darkness did not thicken sharply. It arrived slowly, like something that had been expected. The land beneath the mountain softened further, as if accepting that movement was no longer necessary. Below, the sleeper lay quietly, body resting, but awareness still loosely present. Not alert, not asleep, existing in that long evening space where the body wants rest, but the mind has not fully stepped away yet. The day had not been heavy in any single way. There had been no single moment to point to, and yet the weight remained. The clouds understood this kind of weight. They carried no storm. They carried duration. Hours spent staying composed. Words held back for the sake of ease. Decisions made quietly, without pause. The mountain carried these layers without distinction. Stone does not separate weight into meaning. It supports what arrives as a whole.
The air beneath the clouds felt dense but stable, not oppressive, not free. It existed in a balance that asked nothing from those beneath it. The mountain found this balance familiar too. It had learned that some evenings exist only to be endured gently. They are not meant to resolve. They are meant to slow everything down until effort loses its urgency. Below, the sleeper's breathing remained slow but uneven, as if the body was still deciding whether it was safe to let go fully. Each breath came and went without urgency, but the spaces between them carried small hesitations. The mountain did not rush this decision. The clouds did not either. They stayed still, offering no signal that rest should arrive faster or later. They allowed the night to stretch, creating room for patience. Time felt longer now, not because it dragged, but because nothing pressed it forward. The evening did not push toward morning. It settled into itself, wide and unhurried. The mountain stood inside this widened time. The clouds rested as if they had always been part of the sky's design. They did not feel temporary. They felt like something that belonged to this hour. Below, the sleeper shifted slightly, then stilled again. The movement was small and unconscious, a response to the body searching for a position that required less effort. Eventually, it found one. Muscles loosened a little more. Shoulders dropped by degrees too subtle to notice. The jaw relaxed without instruction. The mind did not comment. This was how familiar evenings worked. They wore you down quietly, not through struggle, but through repetition, until resistance simply stopped being useful. The clouds above did not notice these changes. They were not watching. They existed independently of what happened below, and that made them easier to live beneath. Weight that does not observe you feels less personal. The mountain felt the full breadth of this familiar pressure and did not tense against it. It had learned that familiarity does not need solving. It needs space. The night created that space naturally. Darkness softened the edges of everything, not hiding, but reducing contrast. Nothing felt urgent. Nothing felt demanding. Even the clouds felt less distinct as they blended into the night sky. Below, the sleeper's breathing found a more even rhythm. Not deep yet, just steady enough to feel reliable. The body stopped adjusting itself. The mind followed slowly. Thoughts thinned, not disappearing, but losing their grip. They passed through awareness like echoes without source, fading before they could form. The mountain remained steady. It knew this stage well. This was not sleep yet. This was surrender to waiting. The clouds above had mastered waiting. They did not expect movement. They did not anticipate change. They stayed present without leaning forward. The mountain mirrored this posture. Waiting did not feel like delay here. It felt like permission to remain unfinished, to not move toward clarity, to let the night carry what the day had left behind. Below, the sleeper drifted closer to the edge of sleep, not stepping over it yet. Awareness softened. The boundary between thinking and feeling blurred. The clouds did not interfere. They did not block rest. They did not accelerate it. They simply remained. The mountain understood the quiet lesson of these long evenings, that rest does not arrive when weight disappears. It arrives when weight stops asking for attention. The clouds had stopped asking. They rested, familiar and unmoving. The mountain stayed beneath them, steady and patient. The night continued without urgency, holding both mountain and sleeper in the same unremarkable stillness, until effort finally felt unnecessary, and the body began to trust that it was allowed to rest beneath a sky that did not promise clarity, but offered continuity instead. The clouds remained. The mountain held. And the familiar weight of the evening slowly became something that no longer needed to be carried consciously, only allowed to be there while rest approached on its own terms.
The clouds did not offer answers. They did not explain why they were here or how long they intended to stay. They did not signal change or resolution. They remained quiet, settled above the mountain with a certainty that felt neither hopeful nor heavy, just present. The mountain had learned not to expect answers from the sky. Some questions are not meant to be resolved.
some weights are not meant to be understood. The night seemed to know this too. Darkness deepened gently, not as a closing, but as a softening. The edges of the land blurred further. Distance became less important. What mattered was what remained close. Breath, stillness, the quiet pressure of the clouds above. The mountain stood steady beneath them. It did not look for meaning in their shape. It did not read intention in their stillness. It allowed them to exist without explanation. Stone is good at this. Below, the sleeper rested in a place where questions had begun to lose their urgency. The mind no longer searched for reasons. Thoughts appeared briefly, then faded before they could form demands. Why did this feel heavy? Why couldn't the day let go? The questions came, but they no longer stayed. The night did not invite answers. It invited rest. The clouds felt closer now, not lower, not heavier, but more immediate, as if the sky had narrowed its focus. The air beneath them felt enclosed in a way that was not uncomfortable. It felt protected, like a room where nothing unexpected could enter. The mountain recognized this feeling. It was the feeling of being held by something that did not require response.
The clouds did not judge the land beneath them. They did not react to the stillness below. They were indifferent in the gentlest way possible, and that indifference allowed space. The mountain carried them quietly. Below, the sleeper's breathing slowed further. Inhale and exhale softened into each other, with no sharp edges between them. The body rested more heavily now, trusting the surface beneath it to hold everything. The mind began to drift, not into thoughts, but away from them. This was not sleep yet. It was release of expectation. The night stopped asking for answers. Nothing needed to make sense right now. Nothing needed to be resolved before rest could arrive. The clouds above did not ask the mountain to understand them. They did not demand acknowledgement. They stayed because staying was allowed. The mountain had learned this long ago. Answers can wait. Rest cannot. The air felt quieter now, not because sound had vanished, but because attention had softened. Even silence felt less noticeable, as if it no longer needed to announce itself. The night did not push forward. It settled. Below, the sleeper's awareness drifted in and out gently, not sharply enough to wake, not deeply enough to disappear. It hovered in a place where effort had loosened its grip. The body did not correct its posture anymore. It did not adjust the breath. It trusted what was happening. Trust is often mistaken for certainty. This was not certainty. This was permission. The clouds above felt unchanged, yet something about them had softened. Perhaps it was not the clouds themselves, but the way they were being held, by the sky, by the mountain, by the night that refused to hurry. The mountain felt no urge to resist or respond. It simply stayed present.
The night had learned that answers often create movement, and movement was not needed here. Stillness was doing the work quietly, without explanation. The clouds had stopped being something to think about. They were just there. Below, the sleeper's thoughts lost their edges entirely. What remained were sensations, warmth, heaviness, the gentle pull of gravity. These sensations did not ask questions. They existed. The mountain understood this shift. When the mind stops asking, the body knows what to do. Breathing settled into a deep, even rhythm, not forced, not deliberate. The chest rose and fell without effort. The spaces between breaths lengthened naturally. The night accepted this without comment. The clouds remained unmoving, yet their presence felt less intrusive now. They had become part of the background, like a sound that fades when you stop listening for it. The mountain held them the same way it always had. Answers were no longer required. The sky did not need to clear for calm to exist. The clouds did not need to leave for rest to deepen. Everything had found a way to coexist without conflict. Below, sleep drew closer, not as an event, but as a gradual fading of awareness. The boundary between waking and sleeping softened until it no longer felt important. The night did not mark this moment. It allowed it. The mountain remained steady beneath the quiet sky. It did not expect the clouds to move. It did not wait for clarity. It knew something more important. That sometimes the greatest relief comes not from finding answers, but from realizing that the night has stopped asking for them. The clouds stayed, the mountain held, and beneath the calm, unremarkable sky, the body and mind continued their slow surrender, resting not because everything was understood, but because nothing needed to be understood anymore in order to rest. The night deepened gently, carrying everything forward without explanation, without urgency, and without requiring the sky to change before peace could settle in. The clouds were still there when the night reached deeper into itself. They had not shifted, not thinned, not gathered into anything new. They remained spread across the sky, quiet and unmoving, as if they had decided that this position required no revision. The mountain sensed their steadiness and accepted it without reaction. Some things do not resolve, they settle. The mountain stood beneath the clouds with the same patience it had carried all night. It did not look for signs of change. It did not measure time by the movement of the sky. It remained present, allowing the night to exist exactly as it was. The air felt calmer now, though nothing had changed above. This calm did not come from lightness or release. It came from familiarity. The weight had been there long enough to stop demanding attention. Below, the sleeper rested in a quieter state than before. The body lay heavy and supported, no longer searching for the perfect position. Muscles remained loose, not because comfort was complete, but because effort had finally been set down. The mind no longer tried to understand the heaviness. Thoughts appeared only briefly now, faint and incomplete. They surfaced as impressions rather than ideas, soft reminders of the day that no longer asked to be addressed. Each one passed without leaving a mark. The night did not invite resolution. It invited stillness. The clouds above seemed to participate in this invitation. They did not respond to the calm below, but their quiet consistency made calm easier to maintain. They asked nothing of the mountain, and the mountain asked nothing of them. This balance felt complete.
The mountain had learned that resolution often creates movement, and movement was not needed here. Some nights are not meant to change shape. They are meant to hold their form until the body learns how to rest inside them. The clouds were holding their form perfectly. The night wrapped itself around both cloud and stone without urgency. Darkness felt smooth and even, no longer thickening, no longer shifting. It existed as a steady presence that made everything beneath it feel contained. Below, breathing deepened naturally. The chest rose and fell in a slow, even rhythm. The body did not guide this change, it allowed it. Each breath felt slightly more spacious than the last, as if the lungs had found room they no longer needed to defend. The mind drifted further back, not disappearing, softening. Awareness loosened its grip on the edges of thought. There was no need to stay alert, no need to listen for anything. The night had stopped asking for participation. The mountain remained steady beneath the unmoving sky. It did not celebrate the calm. It did not claim credit for it. Calm arrived because resistance had ended. The clouds above felt less distinct now, not because they had faded, but because they no longer stood out. They had become part of the sky's texture, part of the night's structure. Weight that blends into its surroundings becomes easier to live beneath. The mountain understood this well. It had carried fog that became air, snow that became ground. The clouds were becoming sky. Below, the sleeper's awareness dipped further toward sleep. The boundary between waking and dreaming softened until it no longer felt like a boundary at all. Sensations replaced thoughts, warmth, heaviness, the gentle pull of gravity. These sensations did not ask questions. They allowed rest. The night did not respond to this shift with movement or sound. It did not deepen or lighten. It remained constant, allowing the transition to happen without interruption. The clouds continued to stay, not as a problem, not as a presence to overcome, as something accepted. The mountain felt no difference between this moment and the ones before it. It did not interpret calm as progress. It simply remained available to whatever existed. Availability does not require action. The air beneath the clouds felt settled, like a space that had decided to stop rearranging itself. Nothing pulled forward. Nothing retreated. Time felt less like a sequence and more like a surface, smooth and uninterrupted. Below, the sleeper's body surrendered more fully to rest. The spine softened, the hands relaxed, the face released its last small tensions without instruction. Sleep approached quietly, not announced, not forced. The night allowed this without comment. The clouds above did not block sleep. They did not slow it. They coexisted with it,
proving something the mountain had always known, that clarity is not required for rest to arrive. Resolution can wait. The mountain held this truth steadily. It did not need the sky to clear to feel balanced. It did not need the weight above to explain itself. It had learned how to stand beneath unresolved things without losing its steadiness. The night respected this lesson. Darkness remained even and kind. Silence felt complete without being empty. Nothing urged the moment forward. Below, sleep drew close enough to be felt as warmth spreading through the body. Awareness thinned further, retreating gently into the background. The mind stopped monitoring the process. That was when rest deepened. Not suddenly, naturally. The clouds remained in place, but they no longer felt heavy. They had become part of the night's quiet architecture, something that existed without requiring attention. The mountain stayed beneath them, unchanged. This calm had not come from resolution or release. It had come from allowance. Allowance for weight to exist without being named. Allowance for the night to remain unfinished. Allowance for rest to arrive even when nothing had been resolved. The mountain understood this better than anything else. It stood quietly beneath the clouds, holding the calm that comes not from answers, but from the simple decision to stop asking for them. The night continued, steady and unremarkable. The clouds stayed, and beneath them sleep settled more deeply than before, not because the sky had cleared, but because the body had learned it was safe to rest even while the clouds remained. The clouds were still present, but the night around them had changed. Not visibly, not dramatically. It had become wider. The mountain sensed this widening as a quiet shift in balance. The sky no longer felt close or pressing. Even with the clouds resting low, there was space. Space that did not need to be filled. Space that did not ask to be measured. The mountain remained steady. Wide nights do not remove weight. They make room for it. The clouds rested as they always had, layered and unmoving. They did not thin or drift, but something about the way the night held them had softened. The pressure no longer felt concentrated. It was spread evenly, like a hand resting gently rather than pressing down. The mountain understood this instinctively. Weight feels different when it is shared by space. Below, the sleeper lay in deeper stillness than before. The body felt heavy in a comforting way now, as if gravity itself had slowed down. There was no urge to move, no reason to adjust. The surface beneath the body felt supportive rather than firm. Breathing flowed quietly, slow and even. The mind no longer hovered at the edge of thought. It had drifted inward, toward a place where awareness felt distant and unimportant. Thoughts did not form clearly enough to follow. They appeared briefly, then dissolved into sensation. The night allowed this without response. The clouds above did not react. They did not acknowledge the settling below. They remained exactly as they were, proving that rest does not require cooperation from everything around you. The mountain stood inside this widening calm. It did not mark time by change. It did not measure progress by movement. It simply remained available to what existed. The air beneath the clouds felt smoother now, not lighter, but less resistant. Each breath moved without obstruction, as if the night itself had learned how to step aside just enough. The mountain felt the shift and stayed unchanged. Stone does not chase comfort. It allows comfort to arrive. The clouds no longer felt like something above. They felt like part of the sky's design. The night did not feel endless or long. It felt spacious, wide enough that nothing felt crowded, wide enough that heaviness did not need to be managed. Below, the sleeper's body released another layer of effort. The chest rose and fell without pause. The jaw softened fully. The space behind the eyes relaxed, allowing the last traces of wakefulness to thin. Awareness receded further. This was not sleep yet. This was depth without direction. The mountain understood this place well. It was the place where nothing pushes forward, where time stops feeling linear. The night did not feel like it was moving toward morning or away from evening. It simply existed. The clouds above blended more fully into this existence. Their edges softened, not visually, but perceptually. They stopped standing out against the sky. They became part of the background. Weight that no longer stands out stops demanding attention. The mountain held this truth quietly. Below, the sleeper drifted closer to sleep without realizing it. There was no moment of crossing, no awareness of transition. Sensations replaced thoughts entirely. Warmth, stillness, the gentle sense of being held. The body trusted this state. Trust is what allows sleep to deepen. The night did not announce this trust. It did not celebrate it. It simply continued to be wide and steady, giving the body nothing to react against. The clouds remained, but they no longer felt like something hovering overhead. They felt distant, even though they had not moved. Space had grown around them, making their presence less immediate. The mountain felt no need to interpret this. Interpretation creates effort. The night did not require effort. The air felt calm in a durable way, not fragile, not dependent on silence. Calm felt like a condition rather than a moment. Below, breathing slowed further, deepening naturally. The body sank more fully into rest. Muscles stayed loose without being checked. The mind no longer returned to the surface. Sleep moved closer, not as an event, but as an environment. The mountain remained steady beneath the wide sky. It did not distinguish between cloud and darkness anymore. Both belonged to the same structure now. Both were part of the night's quiet architecture. The clouds had not left, and yet they no longer mattered in the same way. This was the lesson of the wide night, that space can change the experience of weight without removing it, that rest can arrive even when circumstances remain unchanged. The mountain had always known this. It had stood through nights where nothing cleared and still felt balanced. It had learned that calm does not depend on conditions improving. It depends on conditions being allowed. The night continued to widen gently, not stretching, not expanding, simply becoming more accommodating. There was room for everything now: clouds, darkness, breath, rest. Below, sleep finally crossed its quiet threshold. Not suddenly, not noticeably. Awareness slipped away like something no longer needed. The body did not react. It accepted sleep the way it had accepted stillness, without question. The clouds remained overhead, unchanged. The mountain stayed beneath them, steady and patient. The night held everything evenly, weight and rest together, proving that you do not need clarity, resolution, or movement to be held safely. Sometimes all you need is a night wide enough to contain you without asking you to change. The mountain remained. The clouds stayed. And beneath the wide, quiet sky, sleep settled more deeply than before, uninterrupted, unchallenged, carried by a night that had finally grown spacious enough to hold everything at once. The clouds did not measure the night. They did not count how long they had been there, or weigh themselves against the hours that passed beneath them. They remained broad and unmoving, settled into the sky as if measurement had never been part of their purpose. The mountain felt this absence of measurement immediately. Some nights stop counting you. They stop asking how far you've come or how much you're carrying. The night had become that kind of place. Darkness no longer felt like a cover that arrived to replace the day. It felt like a condition that had always been present, waiting quietly for attention to fade. The clouds rested within it without distinction, no longer separate from the sky they occupied. The mountain remained steady beneath them. Stone does not keep score. It does not evaluate weight by duration. Below, the sleeper lay in a depth of stillness that no longer needed correction. The body felt fully supported, as if the surface beneath it had learned the exact shape required to hold everything without pressure. There was no urge to shift, no impulse to test comfort. Breathing moved slowly and evenly. The mind had retreated far enough that it no longer evaluated the state of rest. There was no question of whether sleep was coming or whether calm was deep enough. Those questions belonged to a time earlier in the night. The night had moved beyond them. The clouds above seemed to participate in this release. They did not appear heavy or light. They did not suggest improvement or decline. They simply existed, uninterested in progress. The mountain understood this neutrality. When nothing is measured, nothing feels behind. The air beneath the clouds felt smooth and uninterrupted. There were no subtle pressures shifting within it, no currents asking to be noticed. Everything felt evenly distributed, like a balance that had found itself without instruction. The mountain stood inside this balance. Below, awareness thinned further. Sensations became softer, less distinct. Warmth spread slowly through the body, not as heat, but as absence of effort. Muscles no longer held themselves in place. They rested. The night did not react to this change. It did not deepen dramatically or soften further.
It remained constant, proving that calm does not need to escalate to be effective. The clouds stayed where they were, but they no longer felt like something overhead. They felt integrated, part of the sky's structure rather than an addition to it. Weight that becomes structural stops feeling personal. The mountain had always known this. It had carried seasons, silence, and weather without identifying with any of them. The clouds were simply another condition, present, neutral, and allowed. The night continued without markers. There was no sense of midpoint or approach. Time did not feel linear. It felt suspended, like a surface that did not move beneath your feet. Below, the sleeper drifted deeper into rest without awareness of crossing any threshold. There was no moment of falling asleep. There was only a gradual reduction of attention. Thoughts no longer appeared, even as fragments. Sensations softened into background warmth and pressure. The boundary between body and surface blurred gently. This was not unconsciousness. It was safety.
The mountain felt the quiet certainty of this state and remained unchanged. It did not respond with movement or shift. Listening was no longer active. It was simply present. The clouds above did not interfere. They did not thin to invite light. They did not gather to suggest storm. They allowed the night to remain unmeasured. Below, the sleeper's breathing reached its most natural rhythm, slow, deep, unforced. The chest rose and fell without pause, without attention. The body no longer anticipated waking or rest. It existed. The night felt wide and neutral now, not protective, not enclosing. It did not feel like something happening to the body. It felt like something the body belonged to. The clouds remained, but they had lost their identity as clouds. They were part of the night's texture, no longer something to notice. The mountains held this texture quietly. It did not define the moment. It did not try to understand it. Understanding was unnecessary. The night had stopped measuring you. It did not count how tired you were or how long you had stayed awake. It did not ask how much weight you carried or whether you deserved rest. It simply allowed rest to exist. Below, sleep settled fully now, not as an event, not as a goal achieved, but as a condition that had been quietly forming all along. The body rested deeply, without awareness of resting. The mind remained absent without effort. There was no need to return to the surface. The clouds did not block this depth. They coexisted with it effortlessly. The mountain remained steady beneath the unmeasuring sky, holding nothing more than what was present, without judgment or evaluation. This was the quiet gift of the night. Not release, not resolution, but freedom from being counted. Freedom from progress. Freedom from assessment. The clouds stayed. The mountain held. And beneath the wide, neutral sky, sleep deepened into a state that did not need confirmation. Held gently by a night that had stopped measuring, stopped asking, and stopped requiring anything at all. Everything rested exactly where it was. Nothing needed to change. The clouds were still present, but they no longer felt close. They had not moved higher. They had not thinned. And yet their presence had drifted beyond reach, not physically, but in the way effort can no longer touch what has settled too deeply to be disturbed. The mountain sensed this distance clearly. Some weights remain, but they stop engaging with you. They rest far enough away that effort cannot reach them anymore. The mountain stood beneath the clouds without awareness of holding. What had once felt like carrying had become background, part of the structure of the night itself. The sky did not lean, the land did not brace. Everything had found its place. The night felt different now, not wider, not deeper, quieter in a new way. It was the quiet that appears after effort has withdrawn completely. Not silence, not emptiness, completion. The mountain remained steady. Below, the sleeper rested in a depth where the body no longer communicated upward. Muscles lay heavy and loose, no longer sending signals that asked to be noticed. The surface beneath the body felt distant, not because it had changed, but because awareness no longer reached it clearly. Breathing moved on its own, slow, even, unobserved. The mind had stepped back far enough that it no longer recognized the state it was in. There was no checking, no monitoring. The idea of sleep no longer existed. There was only being. The clouds above did not participate in this shift. They did not respond or adjust. They remained exactly as they were, confirming something important, that rest does not depend on cooperation from the sky. The mountain understood this truth well. It had learned that effort fades before weight lifts, and that rest arrives when effort ends, not when conditions improve. The air beneath the clouds felt neutral now, not dense, not open, balanced in a way that required no correction. There were no subtle movements to track, no changes asking for attention. The mountain remained present inside this neutrality. Time had lost its edges. Moments no longer followed one another clearly. They overlapped softly, like layers of calm laid gently on top of each other. The night no longer felt like something progressing toward morning. It felt self-contained. Below, the sleeper drifted deeper, not falling, not sinking, but spreading. Rest expanded sideways through the body, touching places that had remained alert earlier in the night. The neck softened fully. The back released its final tensions. The space behind the eyes grew quiet and wide. The mind did not comment. Effort could not reach this place. The clouds above felt even more distant now, not farther away, but less relevant. Their presence had become informationally silent. They existed, but they no longer communicated weight. The mountain no longer distinguished between cloud and sky. Both were simply there. This was the place where effort ends.
Not because something has been achieved, but because nothing remains to be done. The night did not protect this place. It trusted it. Below, awareness had thinned to its quietest state. Not gone, but no longer centered. It hovered far back, unable to form questions or images. Dreams had not yet begun. Waking had already ended. This was the still space in between. The mountain remained steady. Listening was no longer active. There was nothing to hear. Presence had replaced attention. The air felt smooth and continuous. There were no breaks, no shifts. Everything existed inside a calm that did not need reinforcement. The clouds did not interfere. They did not dissolve. They did not darken. They simply remained outside the reach of effort. The mountain understood this deeply. When effort stops reaching, weight stops pressing. Below, sleep settled into its deepest early state, stable, unguarded, complete enough to sustain itself. The body did not adjust. The breath did not change. Nothing signaled transition. This was rest without vigilance. The night allowed it to continue. There was no anticipation of waking, no sense of time passing. The sleeper existed inside a stretch of night that did not require awareness. The clouds stayed overhead, but they were no longer overhead to anyone. They existed without relationship. The mountain held this condition quietly. It did not name it. It did not mark it. Naming would require effort. Effort was no longer present. The night had arrived at a place where everything that could relax had already done so. The remaining stillness did not deepen further because it did not need to. It stayed. The air remained balanced. The land remained quiet. The sky remained unchanged. Below, sleep held steadily, deep enough to be uninterrupted, light enough to remain safe. This was the place where effort no longer reaches, where nothing asks for attention, where nothing demands progress. The mountain remained beneath the quiet sky, unchanged by the clouds that still rested above it. They no longer pressed. They no longer mattered. And beneath that unmeasuring, unresponsive night, rest continued naturally, supported not by resolution, not by release, but by the simple fact that effort had stepped aside and left everything exactly where it needed to be. Nothing moved forward. Nothing pulled back. Everything stayed. And in that staying, the night continued to hold, steady, neutral, complete, long after effort had lost the ability to reach this place at all. The clouds were still there, but they no longer defined the sky. They rested above the mountain the way background noise rests in a room, present, consistent, but no longer demanding awareness. They had not moved, not thinned, not changed their position in any visible way, and yet the night beneath them felt different. It had entered its quiet middle. The mountain sensed this immediately. Some parts of the night are not about arrival or departure. They exist only to be inhabited. The mountain stood beneath the clouds without reference to before or after. There was no sense of waiting anymore. Waiting implies expectation, and expectation had quietly dissolved. The night felt settled into itself. Darkness no longer deepened, it no longer softened. It simply remained, smooth and even, like a surface that no longer needed adjusting. The air felt balanced, neither heavy nor light, neither open nor enclosed. The mountain remained steady inside this balance. Below, the sleeper rested in a depth that did not fluctuate. The body no longer moved toward sleep or away from it. It existed fully inside it. Muscles lay loose and heavy, no longer responding to subtle signals from the mind. Breathing continued slowly, evenly, without pause or effort. The mind had withdrawn almost completely. Not asleep in the dramatic sense, not awake in any sense at all. Awareness existed only as a distant background presence, too far away to form thought, too faint to create concern. This was the middle place. The clouds above did not interfere. They did not participate. They remained as they were, no longer meaningful enough to notice. The mountain did not distinguish between cloud and sky anymore. Both had become context. The night did not ask anything of this moment. It did not request surrender or attention. It did not encourage depth or stillness. It allowed everything to stay exactly where it was. The mountain understood this kind of allowance well. It had stood through many nights that did not progress, nights that did not change shape or direction. These nights were not empty. They were sustaining. Below, sleep held itself. The body did not need guarding. It did not test comfort or safety. It trusted the state it was in without checking. Trust had replaced vigilance. The air beneath the clouds felt continuous, like nothing had been interrupted for a very long time. There were no subtle shifts, no changes in pressure. Everything felt stable enough to forget. The mountain remained unchanged. Listening was no longer something it did. Listening was what it was. Time had dissolved into something unrecognizable. There was no sense of how long the night had been holding this calm, and no sense of how long it would continue. Duration felt irrelevant. The night did not care about length. Below, the sleeper existed without story. No dreams had formed yet. No images moved behind closed eyes. There was only rest, wide, neutral, unmarked. This was not unconsciousness. It was rest without narrative. The clouds above did not react to this depth. They did not lift to reward it. They did not darken to challenge it. They remained as they were, quietly confirming that nothing needed to happen next. The mountain felt no impulse to respond. Responding would require effort. Effort had already stepped aside. The night had arrived at a place where calm no longer needed reinforcement. It did not need to deepen further. It did not need to be protected. It existed on its own, supported by the absence of disturbance. Below, the body remained fully relaxed. The spine softened into the surface beneath it. The face held no tension. The breath moved as if guided by something older than thought. The mind did not return. Awareness hovered so far back that it could not form concern, anticipation, or memory. The sleeper was not monitoring the night. The night did not require monitoring. The clouds remained overhead, but they had lost all symbolic weight. They were no longer pressure or metaphor. They were simply part of the sky, neutral, and unremarkable. The mountain stood quietly beneath them. This was the part of the night that often goes unnoticed, the long, quiet middle where nothing changes and nothing needs to. It is not memorable. It is not dramatic. It is restorative. The night did not ask the body to remain asleep. It trusted it. The air felt steady enough to hold everything without strain. Nothing pulled forward, nothing drifted away. The world felt paused, not frozen, but resting in place. The mountain did not mark this stillness as special. Specialness creates attention. Attention was unnecessary. Below, sleep continued to hold itself without interruption. The body did not stir. The breath did not change. There was no awareness of passing time. The clouds stayed. The sky stayed. The night remained exactly as it was, wide, neutral, complete. This quiet middle did not lead anywhere. It did not prepare for morning. It did not reflect on the day that had passed. It existed only to allow rest to continue without effort or observation. The mountain understood this deeply. Some nights do not move forward. They hold. They hold the body in rest. They hold the mind away from itself. They hold weight and calm together without conflict. The clouds above did not need to leave for this holding to happen. They simply needed to stop being noticed. And they had. The mountain remained steady beneath the quiet sky, standing inside a night that no longer asked for attention, explanation, or change. Below, rest continued uninterrupted, deep, even, self-sustaining, carried by a night that had settled into its quiet middle and decided, gently and completely, to stay there for a while. The night did not ask the body to remain asleep. It trusted it. The air felt steady enough to hold everything without strain. Nothing pulled forward, nothing drifted away. The world felt paused, not frozen, but resting in place. The mountain did not mark this stillness as special. Specialness creates attention. Attention was unnecessary. Below, sleep continued to hold itself without interruption. The body did not stir. The breath did not change. There was no awareness of passing time. The clouds stayed. The sky stayed. The night remained exactly as it was, wide, neutral, complete. This quiet middle did not lead anywhere. It did not prepare for morning. It did not reflect on the day that had passed. It existed only to allow rest to continue without effort or observation. The mountain understood this deeply. Some nights do not move forward. They hold. They hold the body in rest. They hold the mind away from itself. They hold weight and calm together without conflict. The clouds above did not need to leave for this holding to happen. They simply needed to stop being noticed. And they had. The mountain remained steady beneath the quiet sky, standing inside a night that no longer asked for attention, explanation, or change. Below, rest continued uninterrupted, deep, even, self-sustaining, carried by a night that had settled into its quiet middle and decided, gently and completely, to stay there for a while. The clouds were still present, but the idea of direction had quietly disappeared. They no longer felt above the mountain in any meaningful way. They were simply part of the night's structure, resting where structure no longer needed explanation. Nothing pointed forward. Nothing leaned backward. The mountain sensed this loss of direction clearly. Some moments are not meant to lead anywhere. They exist only to hold. The mountain stood without orientation. It did not face toward morning or away from the past. It remained exactly where it was, supported by a night that had stopped asking where things were going. Darkness felt even and settled. It did not deepen or thin. It no longer suggested change. The air felt balanced enough that movement felt unnecessary, almost foreign. The mountain remained steady inside this balance. Below, the sleeper rested in a state where direction had also dissolved. The body no longer leaned toward sleep or resisted it. It existed fully inside rest without anticipating what might come next. Breathing continued slowly, naturally, without rhythm being noticed. Each breath arrived and left without significance, like a tide that no longer needed observation. The mind was absent in a quiet way. Not gone, unengaged. Thoughts did not form. Images did not rise. There was no inner movement to follow. Awareness hovered far back, too distant to create narrative. This was rest without intention. The clouds above did not react to this depth. They did not lift as if to reward it. They did not press harder as if to test it. They remained unchanged, offering no direction, no signal. The mountain understood this neutrality. Direction creates effort. Effort was no longer needed. The night felt self-contained now. It did not feel like part of a sequence. It felt complete on its own, as if it had no beginning and no end, only presence. The air beneath the clouds felt smooth and continuous. There were no subtle shifts or currents. Nothing passed through quickly enough to be noticed. Everything moved, if it moved at all, at a pace slower than awareness. The mountain remained unchanged. Below, the sleeper's body felt distant in a gentle way. The sense of where the body ended and the surface beneath it began softened until it no longer mattered. Weight spread evenly, without pressure points, without discomfort. The night held this evenly. This was not heaviness, it was support. The clouds had fully lost their identity as clouds. They were no longer something to notice, something to interpret. They had become atmosphere, part of the night's quiet architecture. Weight that becomes atmosphere stops being personal. The mountain had always known this. It had stood through fog that became air, through darkness that became background. The clouds were simply another layer settling into place. Time no longer felt like time. It did not stretch or compress. It did not move forward or pause. It rested, unmarked and neutral. The night did not carry urgency or anticipation. Morning did not exist here. Below, sleep held itself steadily. The body did not stir. The breath did not change. Nothing asked for adjustment. Rest had reached a depth where it no longer required protection. The mind did not return to check this depth. Checking would require effort. Effort had no place here. The mountain felt the stillness as something stable rather than fragile. This calm did not need silence to survive. It did not need darkness to maintain itself. It existed because nothing was disturbing it. The clouds above did not disturb it. The night did not disturb it. Nothing reached in. The mountain stood quietly, not listening for sound, not watching for movement. Presence had replaced awareness. Being had replaced attention. The air felt kind in an impersonal way, neutral, steady, reliable. It did not comfort or challenge. It simply held. Below, the sleeper existed without sensation that could be named. Warmth, weight, and stillness blended into one continuous experience. There was no sense of inside or outside. This was not dream. This was suspension. The night did not interrupt this suspension. It trusted it. The clouds did not interfere. They did not reassert themselves. They remained invisible through familiarity, proving that unresolved things can coexist with rest when they stop demanding engagement. The mountain understood this lesson deeply. Some nights do not guide you anywhere. They do not teach through change. They teach through stillness. The night had become such a place. No direction, no destination, no requirement to move forward, only holding. Below, sleep continued uninterrupted, deep and even. The body remained relaxed beyond awareness. The mind stayed absent without effort. Nothing shifted. Nothing needed to. The mountain remained beneath the quiet sky, steady and unresponsive to time. It did not wait for the clouds to move. It did not imagine the sky clearing. Imagination had faded with effort. The night did not ask what would come next. It did not need to. This was the night that holds without direction, the kind of night that allows rest to exist without progress, without narrative, without goal. The clouds stayed, the mountain remained, and beneath a sky that no longer pointed anywhere at all, rest continued, self-sustaining, uninterrupted, carried by a night that had decided, gently and completely, to stop leading and simply hold. The clouds were still present, but silence had changed its shape. It was no longer the kind of silence that waits to be filled. It had become the kind that stays whole on its own. The mountain sensed this shift without effort. Silence no longer felt like an absence. It felt complete, as if nothing had been removed and nothing was missing. The clouds rested inside this completeness, no longer separate from it. The mountain remained steady. Some silences are not gaps. They are structures. The night had settled into this kind of silence, wide, intact, and undisturbed. Darkness no longer deepened or softened. It held its form, balanced and quiet, like something that had finished becoming what it needed to be. The mountain stood within it without reference. Below, the sleeper rested in a depth where the idea of emptiness no longer applied. The body was not vacant or numb. It was full of weight, warmth and stillness layered together so gently that none of them stood out. Breathing continued slowly, evenly, without awareness. The mind was no longer withdrawn or present. It was irrelevant. The clouds above did not disturb this silence. They did not move or signal. They existed as part of the night's structure, no more noticeable than the darkness itself. The mountain understood this well. When silence stops asking to be noticed, it becomes supportive. The air beneath the clouds felt smooth and continuous, without breaks or edges. There were no shifts in pressure, no currents asking for attention. Everything felt evenly distributed, like a balance that no longer required maintenance. The mountain remained unchanged. Listening was no longer something that happened. Listening had ended because there was nothing to listen for. The night had reached a place where it did not echo. Sound, if it existed at all, did not travel far enough to matter. Even the idea of sound felt distant.
Below, the sleeper existed without inner movement. There were no dreams yet, no images forming. Awareness did not return to check the body or the night. This was rest without reflection. The clouds had fully lost their identity as something overhead. They were atmosphere now, part of the condition that allowed silence to feel complete rather than hollow. Weight that becomes atmosphere no longer presses. The mountain had always known this. It had stood in fog that erased distance, in snow that softened sound. The clouds were simply another form of enclosure that did not require response. Time felt entirely neutral. Not passing, not paused. It existed without direction, without urgency. The night did not move toward anything. It remained stable, allowing rest to deepen without being noticed. Below, the sleeper's body rested in perfect neutrality. Muscles did not tense or release. They simply existed in a state that required no adjustment. The surface beneath the body felt distant, as if boundaries had softened enough to blur. The night held this gently. The clouds did not interfere. They did not block rest. They did not shape it. They simply remained. The mountain did not respond. Responding would require effort, and effort had long since left this place. Silence continued to hold without emptying. It did not pull inward or expand outward. It stayed complete, offering no space for disturbance. Below, sleep sustained itself. The breath remained slow and unbroken. The body did not stir. The mind did not return. There was no need. The night trusted this depth. The mountain felt the stillness as something durable rather than fragile. This silence did not need protection. It existed because nothing challenged it. The clouds above did not challenge it. The sky did not challenge it. Nothing reached far enough to disturb the balance that had formed. This was the kind of silence that does not feel lonely. It does not ask for sound to validate it. It stands on its own, steady and complete. The mountain understood this deeply. Some nights do not quiet things by removing them. They quiet things by holding everything so evenly that nothing stands out. The clouds remained overhead, but they had ceased to matter. They were part of the night's architecture now, invisible through familiarity. Below, rest continued without interruption. The sleeper did not dream. The sleeper did not wake. The sleeper existed inside a silence that had no edges. The night did not change. It did not need to. The mountain remained beneath the quiet sky, steady and unchanged, holding silence not as emptiness, but as fullness. The clouds stayed, the night held, and beneath a sky where silence had stopped emptying and started sustaining, rest continued, deep, even, unremarkable, supported by a night that no longer needed to soften or deepen because it had already become complete. The mountain felt the stillness as something durable rather than fragile. This silence did not need protection. It existed because nothing challenged it. The clouds above did not challenge it. The sky did not challenge it. Nothing reached far enough to disturb the balance that had formed. This was the kind of silence that does not feel lonely. It does not ask for sound to validate it. It stands on its own, steady and complete. The mountain understood this deeply. Some nights do not quiet things by removing them. They quiet things by holding everything so evenly that nothing stands out. The clouds remained overhead, but they had ceased to matter. They were part of the night's architecture now, invisible through familiarity. Below, rest continued without interruption. The sleeper did not dream. The sleeper did not wake. The sleeper existed inside a silence that had no edges. The night did not change. It did not need to. The mountain remained beneath the quiet sky, steady and unchanged, holding silence not as emptiness, but as fullness. The clouds stayed, the night held, and beneath a sky where silence had stopped emptying and started sustaining, rest continued, deep, even, unremarkable, supported by a night that no longer needed to soften or deepen because it had already become complete. The clouds were still present, yet nothing was being drawn downward anymore. They did not press. They did not invite descent. They rested above the mountain without gravity, as if depth itself had learned how to exist without pulling anything toward it. The mountain sensed this change clearly. Some depths do not pull you in. They allow you to stay exactly where you are. The mountain stood beneath the clouds without leaning into the night or away from it. There was no sense of falling, no sense of sinking. Everything existed at rest, balanced in a way that did not require correction. The night felt deep now, but not heavy. Darkness had reached a point where it no longer accumulated. It held its shape gently, like water that had gone completely still. The air felt neutral and smooth, offering no resistance and no invitation to move. The mountain remained steady. Below, the sleeper rested in a state where depth no longer meant losing control. The body felt fully supported, not sinking, not floating, simply held. Muscles stayed loose, unresponsive to impulse, no longer testing the surface beneath them. Breathing continued quietly, slow and unforced. the mind did not follow the breath. It had stepped far enough back that even awareness felt unnecessary. The clouds above did not react to this steadiness. They did not change to mark progress. They did not shift to suggest danger. They remained exactly where they were, confirming that depth can exist without urgency. The mountain understood this deeply. Depth does not require descent. Rest does not require surrender. The night allowed this truth to remain unspoken. Time no longer behaved like time. It did not stretch or compress. It did not move forward or pause. It existed without direction, as if measurement itself had stepped aside. The mountain stood inside this timelessness without noticing it. Below, the sleeper's body rested in perfect equilibrium. There was no awareness of weight pressing down or lifting up. Sensation existed only as warmth and stillness blended together. The boundary between body and night softened further. The night did not absorb the sleeper, it held them. The clouds had become indistinguishable from the sky now. They no longer appeared as something layered or separate. They were part of the night's fabric, present but irrelevant. Weight that stops being distinct stops being felt. The mountain had always known this. It had stood through nights where depth felt endless and still remained balanced. It understood that stability does not come from resisting depth, but from allowing it to exist without fear. The air beneath the clouds felt smooth and continuous. There were no shifts, no pulses, no subtle movements. Everything rested evenly, like a surface that had found its level. Below, sleep continued uninterrupted. The body did not stir. The breath did not change. The mind did not return to observe. Dreams had not yet formed. This was the quiet foundation beneath dreaming. The night trusted this state. It did not deepen further. It did not lighten. It remained complete. The mountain felt no impulse to move or respond. Presence had replaced effort entirely. Listening, awareness, and attention had dissolved into simple being. The clouds above did not disturb this. They remained without influence. This was the depth that does not pull, the kind of depth that allows rest to exist without falling into it. It supports rather than consumes. It holds rather than draws inward. The mountain remained steady beneath the quiet sky. Below, rest sustained itself naturally. The sleeper remained untouched by thought, by time, by direction. The night carried everything evenly, without emphasis or demand. Nothing leaned forward. Nothing drifted back. Everything stayed. The clouds remained. The mountain held. And beneath the sky, where depth had stopped pulling and started supporting, the night continued to rest with everything inside it, unchanged, undisturbed, and complete, allowing sleep to remain exactly where it was, without needing to deepen or move anywhere at all. The clouds were still there, and the stillness beneath them had learned how to hold its ground. It did not spread further. It did not retreat. It remained exactly as it was, balanced and steady, like something that had discovered it did not need to change in order to endure. The mountain sensed this firmness immediately. Some stillness is fragile. This stillness was not. The mountain stood beneath the clouds without awareness of standing. Presence no longer required posture or attention. Everything that could settle had already done so, and what remained did not need guidance. The night felt grounded now. Not heavy, not deep, grounded. Darkness no longer felt like something layered or surrounding. It felt foundational, like the surface upon which everything rested. The clouds blended fully into this foundation, no longer distinct enough to separate from the sky. The mountain remained steady inside this grounded quiet. Below, the sleeper rested in a state where movement felt unnecessary rather than forbidden. The body did not resist motion, it simply had no reason to move. Muscles lay loose and unresponsive, no longer sending signals upward. Breathing flowed slowly and evenly, without variation. The mind was absent in the most complete way. There was no sense of being asleep or awake. Awareness had thinned to a point where it could not locate itself. This was rest without orientation. The clouds above did not influence this state. They did not lean closer or drift away. They remained neutral, offering no contrast to the stillness below. The mountain understood this neutrality well. When nothing pushes, nothing needs to be held back. The air beneath the clouds felt solid in its calm, not dense, not light, stable. It did not invite expansion or contraction. It remained constant, allowing everything within it to remain unchanged. The mountain stood inside this constancy. Time no longer moved in any recognizable way. It did not pass. It did not pause. It existed without behavior, like something that had stepped aside to let rest continue undisturbed. Below, the sleeper's body rested fully inside this unmeasured time. There was no sense of duration, no feeling of how long sleep had lasted or how long it might continue. Sleep existed without timeline. The night trusted this state enough to stop adjusting itself. Darkness did not deepen or soften. Silence did not expand or contract. Everything remained steady, as if the night had found a form it intended to keep. The clouds did not challenge this form. They remained invisible through familiarity, part of the night's structure rather than something added to it. The mountain felt no need to respond. Response requires contrast. Contrast had dissolved. Below, sleep held steadily. The body did not dream yet. The mind did not surface. Nothing suggested transition. This was the still foundation beneath deeper rest. The night did not rush toward dreams. It allowed this grounded stillness to remain intact, knowing that stability was doing the work quietly. The air felt complete, like a surface that no longer needed smoothing. There were no disturbances traveling through it, no movements that reached far enough to matter. The mountain remained steady. It did not listen for sound. It did not watch for change. Being had replaced awareness entirely. The clouds above did not interfere. They did not require interpretation. They were simply part of the sky's design now, no more significant than darkness itself. The mountain had learned this lesson long ago, that rest becomes durable when nothing is trying to improve it. The night had stopped improving itself. Below, the sleeper remained deeply at rest. Breathing stayed slow and unbroken. The body did not shift. The mind did not return. Everything remained exactly where it was. This was the stillness that holds its ground, the kind that does not deepen further because it does not need to. It supports rest rather than drawing it inward. The mountain remained beneath the quiet sky, unchanged and unresponsive. The clouds stayed. The night continued. And beneath a sky where stillness had found its footing and decided not to move, rest sustained itself naturally, uninterrupted, unmeasured, and complete. Held gently by a night that no longer searched for depth, silence, or calm, because it had already arrived at all of them at once. The clouds were still present, but the idea of holding had quietly dissolved. They did not require support anymore. They did not rest on anything. They simply existed within the night, weightless in their familiarity. The mountain sensed this immediately, not as a change, but as the absence of something that had been there before. Some nights reach a point where even steadiness becomes unnecessary. The mountain stood beneath the clouds without the sensation of bearing them. What had once felt like carrying had faded into neutrality. The sky no longer leaned. The land no longer responded. Everything had found a way to exist without effort. The night felt settled in a final way. Not finished, not ending, settled. Darkness no longer behaved like a layer or a cover. It felt structural, like the quiet framework that allowed everything else to remain where it was. The clouds blended fully into this framework, indistinguishable from the sky around them. The mountain remained steady, without awareness of steadiness. Below, the sleeper rested in a depth where even the idea of being held had disappeared. The body felt neither supported nor unsupported. It simply existed in place, weight spread evenly, effort absent. Breathing continued slowly, evenly, without pattern being noticed. The mind had withdrawn so far that even absence felt irrelevant. There was no sense of presence or distance. Awareness no longer located itself anywhere. This was rest without reference. The clouds above did not influence the state. They no longer shaped the night. They no longer defined the sky. They were simply part of the environment, neutral and silent. The mountain understood this instinctively. When holding is no longer needed, balance has been reached. The air beneath the clouds felt complete. Not still in the fragile sense, still in the settled sense. Nothing passed through quickly enough to register. Nothing lingered long enough to matter. The mountain stood inside this completeness. Time had lost all recognizable structure. There was no sense of before or after. The night did not feel long or short. It felt continuous, as if duration itself had been absorbed into stillness. Below, sleep sustained itself without effort. The body did not check its position. The breath did not adjust. Muscles remained loose and inactive, resting in a state that required no maintenance. Dreams had not yet arrived. They were not needed. The night trusted this depth enough to stop responding to it. There was no reinforcement, no further softening, no deepening. Everything remained exactly as it was. The clouds did not change. They did not need to. They were no longer something to be noticed. The mountain felt no impulse to listen or respond. Presence had replaced all forms of attention. Being existed without orientation or focus. The air felt neutral and kind in a distant way, not comforting, not challenging. It did not react. It did not invite. It held by not holding. Below, the sleeper existed inside this neutrality. There was no sense of sinking, floating, or resting. Those distinctions had faded. The body had become part of the night's still structure. The boundary between inside and outside had softened beyond relevance. This was not depth that pulled, not stillness that enclosed. This was balance. The clouds above no longer carried meaning or weight. They were simply part of the sky's composition, as unremarkable as darkness itself. They neither threatened nor protected. The mountain had known this condition before, though it did not remember when. It was the place where everything stops interacting. The night did not try to preserve this balance. It trusted it. Below, sleep continued uninterrupted, untouched by thought or sensation. The body remained fully at rest. The mind did not return to the surface. Nothing suggested movement toward waking. Nothing suggested descent into dreaming. This was the quiet center beneath both. The mountain remained beneath the neutral sky, unchanged and unresponsive. It did not mark time or condition. It existed inside a night that had released the need to hold anything at all. The clouds stayed. The night remained steady. And beneath a sky where even holding had become unnecessary, rest continued, stable, self-sustaining, and complete, supported not by effort, not by structure, but by the simple absence of anything that needed to be done. Nothing leaned forward. Nothing held back. Everything stayed exactly where it was. The night no longer needed holding, and so it held itself. The clouds were still present, but something subtle had begun to shift beneath them. Not movement, not change. Sensation. The mountain sensed it first, not as disturbance, but as a faint reawakening of texture within the stillness. The night remained calm, settled, complete. And yet, within that completeness, sensation quietly returned without calling attention to itself. Some nights do not wake you. They reintroduce you gently. The mountain stood beneath the clouds without effort, as it always had. But the air felt slightly more tangible now. Not heavier, not lighter, just noticeable in a way that did not require response. Darkness remained steady. Silence remained whole. Nothing had ended. Something had simply softened. Below, the sleeper rested deeply, but the body had begun to feel itself again, not as a need to move, not as discomfort, but as presence returning quietly to its edges. Warmth spread gently through limbs that had been forgotten. Weight felt even and familiar. Breathing continued slow and unbroken. The mind did not return with thoughts. It returned with sensation. This was not waking, it was re-entry. The clouds above did not react. They remained where they were, unchanged and uninterested. They had already done their work by staying still long enough for rest to settle completely. The mountain understood this moment well. After stillness holds long enough, awareness returns softly, without urgency, without instruction. The air beneath the clouds felt smooth but alive, not moving but receptive, as if the night itself had become aware of being night without needing to do anything about it. The mountain remained steady. Below, the sleeper's body registered the surface beneath it again, not sharply, not suddenly, just enough to feel supported. The boundary between body and space gently reformed, without tension. There was no desire to move. There was no impulse to think. The body was simply present again. The clouds remained part of the sky's background. They no longer symbolized weight or pressure. They had become quiet witnesses, unchanging, neutral, and no longer influential. The mountain did not acknowledge them. This stage did not require acknowledgement. Time remained unmeasured. It did not move forward or backward, but it felt less abstract now, more like a container than an absence. The night did not feel endless. It felt sufficient.
Below, awareness hovered faintly, not attached to thoughts or images. Sensation existed without interpretation. The slow rise of breath, the gentle stillness of limbs, the quiet warmth of rest. This was not the beginning of waking. It was the end of forgetting the body. The mountain sensed this balance clearly. It did not respond or adjust. It allowed sensation to return the same way it had allowed stillness to deepen, without interference. The air remained calm and supportive. No sound traveled far enough to matter. No change reached deeply enough to disturb. The clouds above remained unchanged. They did not need to move anymore. Their presence had become irrelevant. Below, the sleeper remained at rest, but not dissolved. The body existed fully again, grounded and supported. The mind stayed distant, uninterested in naming or analyzing what was being felt. This was awareness without thought. The night allowed this gently. It did not brighten, it did not shift. It remained dark and steady, offering a soft backdrop for sensation to exist without turning into activity. The mountain remained steady beneath the quiet sky. It understood that rest does not always deepen endlessly. Sometimes it reaches a point where it stabilizes and begins to return gently toward awareness, without waking, without disturbance. This return was not progress, it was balance. The clouds no longer mattered. They had done what they came to do, remain long enough for the night to become safe. Below, the sleeper remained still, but the body felt quietly alive, not tense, not alert, just present. Breath moved easily. Warmth remained even. Muscles stayed loose. No dreams yet. No thoughts. Just sensation existing peacefully. The night trusted this state. It did not rush it toward waking. It did not pull it back toward depth. It allowed it to remain exactly where it was, a gentle midpoint between deep rest and awareness. The mountain stood beneath the unchanged sky, steady and indifferent to time. It did not anticipate morning. It did not recall the beginning of the night. It remained. The clouds stayed overhead, unnoticed and irrelevant. And beneath a sky that no longer needed holding, no longer needed interpretation, rest continued in a quieter form, supported not by depth or stillness,
but by the gentle return of sensation without thought. Nothing moved forward, nothing pulled back. Everything existed calmly in place, balanced, complete, and undisturbed, carried by a night that understood how to let awareness return without asking sleep to leave. The mountain remained, the night held, and beneath the quiet sky, rest continued, soft, stable, and whole, exactly where it needed to be. The clouds were still there, but preparation had quietly left the night. They did not suggest what would come next. They did not hint at change. They rested above the mountain without anticipation, as if the idea of after had been gently set aside. The mountain sensed this immediately. Some nights do not prepare you for anything. They exist only to complete themselves. The mountain stood beneath the clouds without expectation. There was no subtle leaning toward morning, no sense of gathering energy. Everything remained exactly as it was, balanced and unhurried. The night felt whole, not paused, not waiting, whole. Darkness held steady without shifting tone or texture. It did not deepen or lighten. It did not invite movement or stillness. It simply existed, self-sufficient and complete. The mountain remained steady within this completeness. Below, the sleeper rested in a state where the body did not anticipate waking. There was no tightening at the edges, no subtle readiness forming in the muscles. The body existed without future reference. Breathing remained slow and even. The mind did not return with thoughts. It did not return at all. Awareness hovered faintly, but without direction. Sensation existed without interpretation, without narrative. There was no sense of soon or later. The night had stopped preparing anything. The clouds above did not signal change. They did not thin to suggest clearing, nor did they gather to suggest storm. They remained neutral and unmoving, uninterested in what might follow. The mountain understood this neutrality deeply. Preparation creates tension. Tension was unnecessary here. The air beneath the clouds felt stable and settled. Nothing passed through it with urgency. Nothing lingered long enough to be noticed. Everything existed at a pace slower than awareness. The mountain stood without response. Time had lost its sense of direction completely. It did not move forward. It did not hold back. It existed as an even field, unmarked and quiet. Below, sleep continued to hold itself effortlessly. The body did not adjust. The breath did not change. Muscles remained loose and unresponsive, resting in a state that did not require maintenance. Dreams had not yet arrived. They were not invited. This was a night that did not rehearse the future. The clouds above did not frame the sky as something temporary. They did not suggest that clarity was coming or the darkness would lift. They allowed the night to remain self-contained. The mountain felt no need to interpret this. Interpretation belongs to preparation. Preparation had ended. The night felt settled in its final shape. Not an ending, not a beginning. Simply a form that had decided to remain as it was for as long as needed. The mountain remained steady inside this form. Below, the sleeper existed without internal movement. Sensation remained gentle and even. Warmth, stillness, the quiet presence of the body resting fully supported. There was no desire to move. There was no impulse to think. The body trusted the night enough to remain exactly where it was. The clouds above had become fully irrelevant now. They were no longer perceived as weight or cover. They were simply part of the sky's texture, as unremarkable as darkness itself. The mountain had known many such nights. Nights that did not prepare for morning. Nights that did not review the day. Nights that existed only to allow rest to be complete. The air remained calm and neutral. No sound traveled far enough to matter. Silence did not feel empty or full. It felt sufficient. The mountain did not listen. Listening was unnecessary. Below, sleep remained deep and steady, but not sealed. Awareness existed faintly like a distant light behind closed eyes, present but irrelevant. This was not the edge of waking. It was the center of rest. The night did not protect this state. It trusted it. There was no adjustment, no reinforcement. Everything that needed to settle had already settled. Everything that needed to soften had already softened. The clouds did not interfere. They did not need to. The mountain stood beneath the unchanged sky, steady and indifferent to time. It did not imagine what would come next. It did not recall what had been before. Imagination had no place here. The night did not ask for continuation. It did not ask for conclusion. It existed without goal. Below, the sleeper remained at rest, untouched by anticipation or memory. The body stayed relaxed. The breath stayed slow. The mind stayed distant. Nothing suggested movement toward waking. Nothing suggested descent into deeper sleep. Everything remained exactly where it was. This was the night that prepares nothing, the kind of night that does not shape you for tomorrow or process yesterday. It does not teach or resolve. It holds. The clouds stayed overhead, neutral and unnoticed. The mountain remained beneath them, unchanged, and beneath a sky that did not prepare, did not anticipate, and did not guide, rest continued, complete and self-sustaining, carried by a night that had released the need to become anything other than what it already was.
The clouds were still there when the night reached its quiet end, but nothing remained unfinished. They rested above the mountain exactly as they had before, unmoving, neutral, uninterested. And yet, they no longer carried meaning. They did not represent weight, pressure, or presence. They were simply part of the sky. The mountain sensed this completion without marking it. Some nights do not conclude, they dissolve. The mountain stood beneath the clouds without awareness of standing. There was no sense of having arrived anywhere, no feeling of having passed through something. Everything existed in a steady state where beginnings and endings no longer applied. The night felt whole in a final way. Not closed, not resolved, whole. Darkness remained even and quiet, holding its form gently. It did not thin toward light or gather into depth. It existed as a stable condition, complete enough that nothing needed to change. The mountain remained steady within this completeness. Below, the sleeper rested in a state where nothing was being carried forward. The body felt deeply at rest, but not sealed off. Awareness existed faintly, not attached to thought or sensation. There was no sense of holding on to sleep. There was no sense of letting go. The body simply existed, supported and unburdened. Breathing remained slow and natural, unmonitored and unaltered. Each breath arrived and left without leaving an impression, like something that belonged to the night rather than the body. The mind did not return. It did not need to. The clouds above no longer shaped the night in any way. They had become invisible through familiarity, part of the sky's structure rather than something layered onto it. The mountain no longer distinguished between cloud and darkness. Both belonged. Time had lost its meaning entirely. It did not move forward or backward. It did not stretch or compress. It existed only as a quiet container that allowed rest to remain uninterrupted. Below, sleep held itself without effort. The body did not stir. Muscles remained loose and inactive. The sense of the surface beneath the body faded into background support. Nothing asked to be adjusted, nothing asked to be noticed. This was rest without residue. The night did not protect this state. It trusted it completely. The air beneath the clouds felt calm and neutral, neither warm nor cool, neither dense nor open. It did not invite movement or stillness. It simply existed as the space in which everything rested. The mountain remained unchanged. Presence no longer required attention. Being had replaced awareness entirely. There was no listening, no watching, no responding. The night had reached a place where nothing remained to be processed. The weight that had once been felt had been absorbed so completely that it no longer existed as weight. Nothing lingered. Nothing waited. Below, the sleeper existed without memory of the night's earlier moments. There was no recall of clouds, pressure, or stillness. The body rested as if it had always been resting. The clouds did not interfere. They did not need to.
This was the gift of a night that leaves nothing behind. No tension carried forward. No effort stored away. No quiet ache waiting to return. The mountain understood this kind of ending well. It had stood through countless nights that did not leave marks. Nights that passed without shaping the land. Nights that existed only to allow balance to restore itself naturally. This night was one of those. The clouds above did not signal departure. They did not need to. Their presence no longer mattered.
Whether they stayed or moved would not change what had already settled. The mountain remained beneath them, steady and complete. Below, rest continued in its most natural form, unforced, uninterrupted, and whole. Awareness remained distant. Sensation existed softly, without direction or meaning. Nothing leaned toward waking. Nothing pulled toward deeper sleep. Everything rested exactly where it was. The night did not announce its end. It did not mark a transition. It simply remained complete long enough that nothing needed to follow it. The clouds stayed overhead, unnoticed and irrelevant. The mountain remained steady, unchanged by time or condition. And beneath a sky that left nothing behind, rest continued, pure and undisturbed, held gently by a night that had fulfilled its only purpose: to exist quietly, to carry what arrived without effort, and to leave no trace behind when it was done. Nothing moved. Nothing waited. Everything stayed whole. And in that wholeness, the night released everything, not by pushing it away, not by lifting it, but by holding it gently until there was nothing left to hold at all.